Okay, good afternoon again. Today we're going to move on to lesson 6 or session 6, which is chapter 6 in your text. And if you go back to slide number 2, you will see again where this fits into the overall picture of the book. So the strategy formulation, we're now at the third chapter on strategy formulation, which is chapter 6, and it's dealing with corporate level strategy. Now, earlier we dealt with corporate level strategy as a comparison with business level strategy 2 sessions ago. Now, corporate level strategy, now we're going to get into more depth and try to understand a bit more about it. So, if you look at a summary of the relationship between diversification and firm performance, and then look at that in terms of corporate level strategy or business level strategy, we can see in slide 4 there are a number of dimensions. So there's value creating influences. This is economies of scope, economies of scale, your market power, your financial economics, etc. In other words, the kind of tangible and intangible benefits that you have in your company. And then you have value neutral influences such as incentives and resources that you may have available. And then you've got value reducing influences, which are managerial motives to diversity. In other words, have you got a management company who is open to diversity, who is progressing in a diverse range, or are you dealing with conservative managers who want to keep things more under wraps? So, if we're looking at diversity with capital markets, intervention in the marketplace, managerial talent that you have, your internal governance structure, and they all lead to diversification strategy, which gets into firm performance and which results from strategy implementation. Now, an example of all this is Foster's in Australia. Foster's did have a company which was selling beer, but it decided that it's going to start getting into the wine industry. However, it made a fundamental mistake. Beer is not wine, and the people who sell beer don't necessarily know how to sell wine, because the skills in wine selling are very, very different than the skills in selling beer. So by not looking at a different combination of staff to sell wine as opposed to beer, Foster's lost an awful lot of money, and they weren't able to create value as they'd expected. They thought that by moving into the wine industry from the beer company, they were going to be suddenly a much more successful company simply by diversifying its product range. The reality is that the diversification wasn't compatible with what they were doing already. Wine is not beer, and so on. So in Western Australia there is a brewery called Bootleg Brewery, which is within the wine industry or wine sector of Western Australia. And the people who go out and looking at wineries and doing the tour of wineries and so on in Western Australia, usually the females and males go together. So husband and wife go out, or boyfriend and girlfriend go out. And the wife and the girlfriend are very happy to tour the wineries all day and sample different kinds of wine. But in the evening, their male partner wants a beer. And so Bootleg Brewery has come in and has taken a position in that marketplace, and that's where they go for dinner. So Bootleg now has a very successful brewery selling beer to people who were on a day's outing to taste wine, because the restaurant that's held at the Bootleg Brewery has very excellent food and so on. How do I know this? Well, it's because my brother is one of the founders of Bootleg Brewery himself, a principal of a school in Perth, set this up some years ago, and it's highly successful. Now, corporate level strategy, we talked about this before, versus business level strategy. It means that a diversified firm has 2 levels of strategy: a business level or competitive strategy, and a corporate level or company-wide strategy. And the latter of which entails selecting a strategy that focuses on the selection and management of a mix of businesses. So we talked about this in relation to Garuda Air. It's an airline moving passengers around, but then it can get into moving cargo around. It can get into purchasing and maintaining aircraft. It can get into training cabin crew and pilots. It can get into the tourism sector and start selling holidays or vacations as part of their business. So a corporate level strategy is not the same as a business level strategy by any means. So in understanding what corporate level strategy, you look at slide 7. What businesses should a firm be in? How should the corporate office manage its group of businesses? And is there any integration of those businesses that could be useful? Is there any commonality in the kind of services or support that you provide to those businesses? Now, if you look at Virgin Airlines and Virgin Megastores and Virgin Studios and so on, a lot of their corporate headquarters are providing services like marketing to all those businesses. So they're not setting up multiple marketing companies within Virgin Airlines or Virgin Company. They're providing services that are cutting across different businesses. Now there are different levels of diversification linking between businesses. So there's single business situation and there's a dominant business situation. And then there's this low level of diversification, then moderate to high level of diversification is where you have related constrained diversification. Or you've got mixed and unrelated companies all working together. High levels of diversification, unrelated diversification. So we have a slide number 9 which explains all of those and gives you details of them. Now low levels of diversification, a single business for example like Wrigley Chewing Gum is a single business. And so it has lasted for many, many years, decades in fact, selling one product, chewing gum. Now there's different kinds of chewing gum, different brands of chewing gum, different tastes of chewing gum, double mint, spearmint, juicy fruits, etc., etc. But they have been in business since 1915. Now, in that case, they have been able to successfully progress and expand their businesses by staying with a single product. Other companies like JR Nabisco and Warner Lambert, etc., may end up with many different kinds of businesses or different kinds of products within its business. So focusing on its core business has enabled Wrigley's top-level managers to maintain a strategic control of the business. So they're a dominant business where 70–95% of their business comes from selling just chewing gum, nothing else. Related diversified businesses are ones like Kodak, Procter & Gamble, Campbell Soup, etc. And these are dealing with linkages between businesses that may be separate and distinct, but at the same time are all working under the same umbrella. A related diversified business would be Richard Branson's Virgin Company, where he's relating business cruises to airlines, to megastores, to studios, etc., etc. So these are related diversified businesses. Related constrained diversified businesses would be Campbell, Procter & Gamble, Kodak, Campbell Soup, etc., etc. Now, why do companies go into diversification? Well, they may attempt to neutralize a competitor's market power, or they might want to reduce managers' employment risk, or they might want to increase managerial compensation, and in that way gain a major market share in a business area. So the reasons for diversification are to enhance strategic competitiveness and motivate, and is motivated by value neutral with respect to strategic competitiveness, or may be involved in value reducing motives as well. Now you have a slide number 18 which is looking at different value creating diversification strategies at operational and corporate relatedness. So you can have a look at that, which will give you a bit more explanation about the different kinds of diversification. Now, market power is something that's important. And in the case of vertical integration, you are looking at market power exists when the firm is able to sell its product at prices above the existing competitive level or decrease the cost of its primary activities below the competitive level or both. So multi-point competition is a condition in which two or more diversified firms compete in the same product areas or geographic markets. So market power and multi-point competition are areas where companies can have a comparative advantage. Now, vertical integration enables a firm to increase its market power by developing the ability to save on its operations, avoiding market costs, improving product quality, protecting its technology from imitation or rivals, and having a strong ties between their assets for which no market prices exist. Resources and diversification. In addition to having incentives to diversify, a firm must also possess the correct mix of resources. The tangible and intangible or financial resources of the company make the diversification feasible and possible. So, depending upon the mix of tangible and intangible resources, you may be able to increase your diversification range in the marketplace and so maintain profitability. And so all of the time you're looking at two things. You're trying to remain competitive and you're trying to get above average returns on investment. Thank you.